strategic move that Eddie is making for AJ? Why are you not thinking, let's get him set up for
kind of animal? If that was years and years and years ago. Like, Clarissa is a way different fighter from when she was back in the
Thanks to those joining me live and to those that will be joining me on our
defenses that she's had to have recently. You know, she's pulled people.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the RoundTable about tribalism. I don't think tribalism is necessarily bad. I just don't think it has to be.
I don't know what he think he sees or what he think he know. But he going to the hospital, bro. Like, bro, you not winning that fight.
You guys mentioned, I think, D-Style, you mentioned him versus Regis program. I'd love that. Sounds like a
old. I don't need you, you know, and PBC and others, in my opinion, it's like, oh, this is my guy. Like, there's a relationship.
Flat out, it's tough, and we call box, and we go to the end of the round, and then
that would say, what do you mean by acting black? That's a fair question, but a participant of trash talk knows.
And they're announcing a fight 3-4 months from now, and he ain't gonna fight. I bet you anything, he's not gonna fight somebody as good as John Ryder. What's going on, everybody? D-Style here. Thanks to those joining me live and to those that will be joining us here on Archive. Being joined by Joe Habib, as always, from Ringside, reporter, partner in crime. And, of course, we have the one and the only Roberto Diaz will be joining the panel today. Good to have you here. So much to talk about. We're going to dive right in right now. I just want to, it wasn't really the topic, but it's just us right now, so I just want to bring this up. So there was this show, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, HCP. It interviewed Glenn Jennings and Fox Sports and Main Event from Australia. That's a pay-per-view company that does the pay-per-views for Tszyu, have reported the report from the show that Calix and I did about Glenn Jennings confirming that there was nothing to the rumors about Tszyu wanting to fight in Australia. It was always going to be in the U.S. They've agreed to it. And it's pretty much, they're just waiting on the announcement they're just waiting on the announcement right now from PBC. He suspects they're just kind of the news cycles. Canelo was dominating the news cycles. They're waiting for the perfect moment to announce it. Roberto Diaz, what's your reaction to this fight? As a former matchmaker of Golden Boy, when you look at a Tszyu fight and Jamel fight, and knowing that it's going to be here in the U.S. more than likely, what's your reaction to that?
First of all, D-Style, Joe, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and honor, and let's have some fun. Look, I did a lot of Jamel's fights early on in his career. He was signed to Golden Boy. Tremendous fighter. That fight had to be in the U.S. I mean, as big as an event that it could be in Australia, it's more of the magnitude of the meaning of the fight in the U.S. I mean, let's be real. You could fill up a stadium maybe in Australia, but it doesn't mean the same as fighting in the U.S. A lot of fighters like Tszyu, a lot of European fighters, Australian fighters, Japanese fighters, sometimes can make more money fighting at home. But it's when they cross the pond, when they cross that ocean and come to the U.S. where the legends have fought, that's when they know they've made it to the big time. This fight belongs in the U.S. It will be in the U.S. Hopefully we'll get an announcement soon. And it's a great fight. I think it might be this is one of those fights that time will deliver a better fight. If it would have happened maybe a year from now, or a year ago or two, it might have been too soon for Tszyu. I think right now Tszyu is at a moment where mentally, physically, and emotionally, he knows he's at the top of his game. He's going to be hard to beat.
Absolutely. Joe, we were hearing supposedly the fight that the Tszyu side really wants to fight in Australia. It turns out that was not the case. It turns out it's going to be in the U.S. per the manager of Tszyu, as reported on HCP. I'm just saying, and shout out to Fox Sports Australia, by the way. What's your reaction, Joe?
Pretty much assumed it was going to be in the United States, anyways. Jamel is the A side of this event, but also too, it's the economics, and I'm sure Roberto can speak to this as well. The economics in the United States in terms of the ticket prices and the gate and everything, and obviously the time would have to be right here for people to be able to buy the pay-per-view. So you can't do it in Australia and expect people to be able to watch it on pay-per-view in the United States because the time just wouldn't work. So obviously some fights have to go overseas. You know, if you have a guy like Joshua, who's the name, and he's going to fight an Andrew Ruiz, obviously if the foreign fighter is the A side and he's going to draw the crowd and he's going to draw the numbers, then that's where it makes sense. It just wouldn't have made sense for that fight to be in Australia, you know, given the, you know, the event itself.
I agree.
I definitely agree as well, man. Shout out to Lisa Bales. I appreciate the support. Shout out to my sister Lisa Bales, D-Style in chat. How's it going? Always supporting the content. I definitely appreciate it, and thank you very much for that super chat donation. Look, Berlanga, he just had a fight against Quigley. It was a tough fight, exciting fight to watch. I liked watching the fight. I thought it was a good fight. Berlanga once again doesn't get the knockout he was looking for, but I think I didn't hate everything I saw. I thought he looked solid. But now he called out Mungia. He wants to do the Mungia fight. When I heard that, it was music to my ears. I think the promotion for that would be great. The two promoters don't like each other, so why not have their fighters fight it out, right? I mean, might as well. It reminds you of like when Vince McMahon and Donald Trump did that promotion where the two wrestlers were representing them, and they fought it to see who the better man is, whatever. But so. 2 fights on the table. We have that one. Oscar has said that he likes that Munguia anyway likes the fight with Benavidez. I'm not so much against that, but I have my thoughts on it. Roberto, which of those 2 fights would you prefer?
I mean, if I was working with Mungia and if I was working for his side, I would say the Berlanga fight right away, without a doubt. I mean, it's a fight that sells. Mexico against Puerto Rico has always been a seller. You got 2 undefeated fighters. It could turn into a classic. They're very similar. Go out there. They like to bang. They both get hit. I think it would be exciting as long as it lasts. I really was surprised that Berlanga and Eddie Hearn want that fight so soon. I think it's a little too soon for Berlanga. But look, you got to give the kid credit, because in today's world, and we're starting to see a change. In today's boxing world, a lot of the guys want to protect that zero, and they don't want to take risks. For Berlanga to say, I want Mungia and I want him now, then the critics, the boxing fans, rather than saying, yes, that's what we've been claiming for, that's what we've been wanting our fighters to do, they go and criticize. Oh, it's too soon. He's going to get blown out. So it's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Boxing is of a young man's sport. Let's get these good fights while it's hot, while they're young. Not till they're, in their late 30s and so. But if I was working with Mungia, I would say, look, let's go with Berlanga and then Benavidez. Not Benavidez and then Berlanga.
Okay. So, Beeb, of those 2 matchups, which one would you like to say?
No, I said it on Sunday on our show that if you're a promoter and you can't make Berlanga versus Mungia, given the situation, both guys are with the zone, De La Hoya, Eddie Hearn, they've worked together before. I know they talk a lot of trash, but they still work together. Yeah. But to me, Berlanga's at that point, 21 fights in. It's sink or swim for him. You got to take the training wheels off. The guy was highly touted. Obviously, if we look at these last couple fights, maybe a lot of the hype and the expectation were pretty lofty. And he has looked to not really achieve that, right? So he hasn't reached the level that most people thought he would in terms of his performances. But this is the type of fight where it's not like tippity top, but it's like a rung below that top level with Mungia. And that's what I say, that with all due respect to Mungia, because he's not at Benavidez level, I would even question if Mungia is at John Ryder level right now, given what we've seen in the last fight. But I think both guys are very good offensive fighters, but as Roberto said, where the vulnerability lies is the defense. And when you have 2 offensive machines that have defensive vulnerabilities, it's a can't miss. Mm-hmm. So I just think that this is the time to make this fight, strike while the iron's hot, because let's just be honest, there's a chance that either guy can lose in the interim. So why not make it? And if they're gonna lose, why not have them lose to each other? Instead of losing to someone like a Jason Quigley. So then you'll take some of the luster out of this fight. So this is, like I said, strike while the iron's hot. I think this is the time to make this fight right now. And it is a can't miss style-wise. And you have, as Roberto said, the Puerto Rican-Mexican rivalry. It's just a can't miss.
Plus, Joe, you got to keep it. I mean, and I was always, I didn't like the in-house still too much, but sometimes you're forced to do it because the other promoter doesn't want to play ball or what have you. But this is a kind of fight that you're absolutely, you hit it right on the head, because this is a fight that, let's say Mungia loses to Berlanga, Berlanga loses to Mungia, you're still bringing up the DAZN fighter. You're not like putting them in against Showtime or ESPN fighter, and then you raised his quality. You raised his level, and then you sunk it, which is okay when you do it. It has to happen. Promoters need to put their best against the other's best, but in this particular case, like you said, it should be very easy. If you put egos aside, make the fight, DAZN wins.
Yeah.
Boxing wins.
It's a win for the platform, and it's a win for everybody. And once again, if one guy loses to the other, there's really no shame, because again, both big offensive power punching guys. So,
Look, if I ask, before I go to Luke, if I ask 10 boxing fans right now, if I ask them, do you remember who won the Gotti Ward fight, the first one? Half of them probably will say Gotti, just like because they know he won a trilogy. But many don't even remember that Ward won a decision, right? My point is that fight was so good that there was no loser in that fight.
You're absolutely right. And that's where boxing wins. When you're making them, like Joe said, when the fight is hot, when the people want to see it, not 2-3 years from now, it's now. And that's why I got to applaud Berlanga. And I knew going into the fight, I represented Quigley that night, and I knew going into the fight, he had a lot of pressure on himself because he was fighting at home. He was expected to knock out Quigley. First fight, debut with Matchroom and DAZN. So we needed to take advantage of that pressure with the more experienced fighter that had no pressure. Everybody expected Quigley to get knocked out in 2 or 3 rounds. So I think this is the kind of fight that will teach Berlanga to get better. And you got to remember something. He's a stablemate of Dibrachenko. So even though he wasn't in the ring with Mungia, he's going to learn a lot of Mungia just from that fight with his stablemate.
Absolutely. Lukey in the building. How's it going, brother? And I have a question for you. Berlanga called out Mungia. Oscar saying he wants to do the Benavidez fight. Of those 2 fights, which one would you rather see?
Either. Just good fights. I want to see the best fighters who seem like the best fighters to me face each other, and then that creates the best fighter. I'm tired of talking about who's the best fighter. Let's have the best fighters fight each other. I think they're both really good fights in their own unique way.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Mario Munguia from Infighting Pod. Everybody subscribe to his channel. Subscribe to Lukey Boxing as well. It's what's the name of your channel, Lukey, again, on YouTube?
It's just me. It's Lukey Boxing. It's me sitting in a room talking to myself. It's fun.
There you go. There you go.
It's great. I promise you. I've been watching Lukey. Great stuff lately.
So, Mario, Berlanga called out Munguia. I like that fight. Oscar says he wants to work with Benavidez. What do you make of that? Which of those 2 fights would you rather see?
Man, I'll be honest. I would kind of rather see Mungia Berlanga. It's not because I'm not ready to see Mungia step up, and it's not because of any sort of protection type of thing. I honestly feel like Benavidez is this elite guy. Like, does he beat Canelo? I don't know. Like, that's not even the question. But here and now, what are the best fights that I can watch? Like, when I think of a guy like Munguia and what he's capable of doing, I think of my parents. I think of my grandparents. I think of my friends and my cousins that are going to be sitting next to me enjoying these fights. And I feel like that's a fight that can be really fun. I feel like that's a fight that can be competitive while it lasts. And what we got with the Mungia Derevchenko, I have family members still texting me about it. I have friends who don't watch boxing unless it's Earl Spence and Wilder and, Canelo and the biggest, and they're calling me like, hey, who's fighting this weekend? And that's what that Mungia fight was able to do for our sport. When you're able to put on these types of fights, you get returning fans. The problem is the best fighting the best is usually how you produce those things. So look, if Mungia isn't going to get some of the big fights that we wanted, I don't have a problem with that Berlanga fight, and I think it's probably easier to make at this point.
All right. And Roberto, I want to take it back to you because there was an announcement today, and it's being reported that Berlanga and Benavidez should throw a monkey wrench into all of this, right? Has been ordered by the WBC as an eliminator. So they just threw a monkey wrench in everything. What do you think of that?
That's fake news. That's not true.
That's not true. Okay, it's fake. Okay, there you go. All right, so I was reading that. I don't even know what the hell was going on with that. So that's fake news. But I put on the poll anyway in the chat. If you guys want to give your take on that, and it looks like most people are voting Berlanga, Mungia by 82% at the moment. We'll keep that. Yeah, we'll keep that going. I like the fight. I think it's a hell of a fight. So that's the one I want to see.
If you have like a round robin, I think it makes sense. Mungia against Berlanga. You got the Mexico, Puerto Rico. That actually, I would say, take it to New York. Mungia will fight at Madison Square Garden for the first time. There's a lot of Mexicans that will support Mungia in New York. And then you do Morel against Benavidez, which is another hell. So now it's two in-house fighting, and then the winners face each other. That's where you get, like Lukey said, who is the best in the division? Who deserves the big payday against Canelo? Well, it's the winner of those four.
Well, there you go. All right.
And let me add to that, because a future Hall of Fame matchmaker says kind words. You want to add to it. But that's what we need we need these tournaments that create logic. So it's like, here's the four best welterweights. You guys fight each other. Let's make a world title mean something. Let's treat the fight fans with intelligence. Like, let's create paths. Paths create fans because they know what to follow. Where I get mad at boxing is I have to talk about boxing and I get confused on why guys are fighting this guy. It makes no sense, so the fans don't watch.
Yeah. So I want to, since Canelo was brought up, and we have someone, Roberto, you worked with Canelo before to a certain capacity, right? When I did the interview, Calix and I, with you, you said a line that stuck with me. You said you didn't really match Canelo. He kind of told you what he wanted. He kind of did what he could with that. A report came out today, and the way it's being framed is Canelo is going to get to, quote-unquote, cherry pick whoever he wants in his PBC deal. What can you say about what you know about Canelo, and if there's fans out there that think he's going to get easy pickings or try to go for the easiest path or whatever they're thinking, what can you say about Canelo Alvarez as a fighter, and from what you know, and the type of fights he's more than likely going to have on PBC?
When I said last time we were on about him being one of the easiest fighters to work with as far as matchmaking, he has not changed at all. Obviously, I haven't matchmade for him in quite a few years, but I know him personally. I know what drives him. He's after legacy. Nothing's changed. I mean, look, he didn't need to go after Bivol. He had already won the light heavyweight title. There was no need to repeat that. Once you've done it, there's no need. Roy Jones went up, won the heavyweight title, ran out of there, said, I've done it for history, for the books, but I'm not a heavyweight. As far as cherry picking his next 2 or 3 fights, not when they're paying that kind of money. If he went over there, it's because the money was big, the bag is there, and they're going to want to, how do they get their money back? If they put easy fights in front of them, they're going to lose out a lot of money. So they got to put the best fights possible. They got to put their best fighters that they have in order to make it a huge event, make it a huge success, and hope that they make some money back. And I'm sure they will.
All right. Anybody in the panel want to add on to that before we proceed?
I just want to know how, the whole boxing world seems so surprised and everybody seems shocked. How shocked were you that was the path that Canelo paid? I mean, as you said, you worked with him and know him well.
I was a little surprised of not that he would go over and do a deal, and I thought it would be a one-fight deal. Go over there, fight Charlo, then maintain like a free agent where he doesn't have to tie in. But it must have been a very good deal, a significant deal with a pattern laid out that made sense because in all honesty, regardless of how his relationship was with Matchroom, as good as it was, who else did they have right now that he can continue fighting? I think the fights are, the Charlo, the Benavidez, as crazy as it sounds right now, you hear possibly the winner of Spence and Crawford. It sounds crazy.
No, it's not.
But Canelo's not a super middleweight. Weight-wise he is, but size-wise he isn't. And he's gone up and fought the big guys. Now, today, if you mention, the winner of Spence fight Crawford fights Canelo, whoa, that's not fair. He came from the same level. He came from the welterweight, super welterweight. Sugar Ray Leonard went from welterweight to fight Donnie Lalonde at super middleweight. I mean, it's been done. But if a Spence Crawford versus Canelo could be done at a certain catch weight or something of the 60 plus, 65, if that can be done, that's your modern day Leonard Duran. That's your modern day Leonard Duran, American against the Latino. That's the top of, and only in boxing, how do you when you retire as a legend, you got to fight the best and the ones that people will think you're not going to fight.
Yeah, well said. Look, as far as before we proceed from the whole Berlanga thing, should boxing fans be concerned with the De La Hoya, Eddie Hearn thing, or I don't know, will money make them work together the way Don King and Aaron work together? I mean, ultimately, should we be concerned that fights won't happen? Will Berlanga Mungia not happen because of a promoter beef or whatnot? I'll just go around the panel real quick. We'll start with you, Robert. Do you think they'll still work together regardless of what they're saying on Twitter?
Look, at the end of the day, fans in boxing need to stop being fans of the promotion. They need to be fans of the fights. If the fight is good, I don't care who's promoting it. I don't care how much they're making. I don't care who's promoting it. If the fight is good, I want to watch that fight. Now, if there's a little beef behind the scenes between them, that should be the bonus. That's that whipped cream on top to make it more exciting and funner when it comes time to the promotion. But at the end of the day, I'm tuning in for that fight.
For sure.
And the fighters need to tell the promoters. At the end of the day, the promoter works for the fighter. The managers work for the fighter. I'm going to get a lot of hate from this, but at the end of the day, the fighter needs to stand up and say, I want to fight this guy. Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, they showed it. They both wanted to fight each other. They went back to their promoters and said, I don't care what you got to do, get this done, and we got the fight.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Joe Beeb, do you think the squabble, whether short-term, long-term, is going to affect some of these fights, or do you think ultimately business will prevail?
I think business will definitely prevail because look at the Ryan Garcia Tank Davis situation. De La Hoya and Leonard Ellerbe, they did not like each other at all. They were insulting each other left and right throughout the course of that whole promotion. So, business always prevails. When the fight is big enough, it gets made. And when the fighters see that the fight is big enough and they know they can get a lot of money for the fight, then it entices them and incentivizes them to want to fight. And plus, I could see DAZN putting pressure on both guys and saying, we want to make this fight, right? So when you get pressure from the broadcaster, right, and they're saying this is what we want, and they're adamant about it, then, that puts a lot of strain on the situation. And, if you want to get the date and you want to get the fight, then, you got to work with the broadcaster sometimes because they're the ones that decide whether or not the fight gets broadcast or not. And if they don't want to broadcast it, then guess what? You don't have a fight.
100%.
It's that simple.
Okay, all right. Hey, Lukey, Oscar keeps tweeting out, Lonesome Eddie, and Eddie's they're kind of making fun of him, and they're making fun of each other. There's a beef. Is this going to affect, even in the short term, any of these fights getting made, in your opinion?
Well, I'm going to give a roundabout answer, but it's going to be the answer I feel. So I'm going to, because I feel like everybody's going to say the same answer. So I'm going to bring in, today I was in the state capitol, right? And you got Republicans and Democrats and however you feel. But guess what? They all work together for money. They find common issues. There's reasons, but people with different backgrounds come together to work for money. The fight fans need to be fans of the fighters, not the promotions, and for the best fights. And the promoters will always do what's best for business. It doesn't matter. Business is built on how do I make more money. It would be childish and immature if you don't make money to your shareholders if there's money to be made. So I cannot see any business owner making less money just because of a grudge.
Okay, Mario, you texted me. You said, "Man, this beef is getting worse." Like you know, that's why I extended this topic for you.
No,
So,
thank you. I
what
appreciate
did you want to cook on? What was on your mind, Mario? Like, what's going on? Are you concerned?
First of all, I want to say, great answer from Roberto and Lukey. I absolutely agree wholeheartedly in everything you say. But I think this is the problem, right? Here you have two men who are captivating, great on the mic, you know, quick-witted, always ready with the joke, and that kind of back and forth plays well, as Roberto said, as kind of the cherry on top of the fight, you know. But if you're not Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg getting ready to get into the ring, then the spillover, it leaves a nasty taste in your mouth. Like, I've always been a big fan of Osceola Hoya since I was a kid. You know, he's one of my heroes. But this stuff with Eddie coming after the Ryan Garcia stuff, it's starting to feel petty. It's starting to feel like as if, you know, Steinbrenner in the 90s with the Yankees or you know, Jones with the Cowboys in the last 2-3 decades. Like, it just feels like the I don't want to say ego, but it just feels like the personality is starting to overshadow the goal. What should the goal be? Making fights the best fights. How can you do that? You have to cross promote now. You have to work with others. So whether this is the kind of promotion or the kind of back and forth, and this is my ultimate thought, like immediately, was that, look, these two guys both lost Canelo in a span of certain years, and now they're kind of going back and forth, and they're keeping themselves in the media, and that's brilliant types of stuff from old promoters who have experience in the game. But again, the rhetoric back and forth and the shit that we see on Twitter all the time, like, it just adds to the negativity, and I just don't want to see that shit. I go to boxing to escape the politics and the garbage that we see from people fighting all the time. Everybody's fighting. I want to see the guys fight, and I want them to be rewarded for it. I don't want it to spill over into campaign marketing on Twitter.
Let me add to that, Mario, because you bring up a good point, but I'll give you a little reason why we see that and why it's going on. At the end of the day, it is ego. In boxing, it's too much ego. And then add to that in one of these cases, you have a former fighter. Maybe if he wasn't a fighter, his mentality would be more on the business part, you know, and say, you know what, I don't care. As long as it makes business, let's get to work. But one of the greatest fighters that ever stepped into the ring, Oscar De La Hoya, is going to close his eyes one day as a fighter, as a champion. He'll always be a fighter. So let me throw the punch first, and then I'll ask the question later. You know, a fighter, and I'm not just saying just Oscar, but when you're a great fighter, that's the first thing you do is you come out swinging. And then on the other hand, you got a guy that's, you know, doing his thing, came over to America, didn't get a lot of open doors. The doors got closed because you're an outsider, and he's done a great job as a foreign promoter coming into America, taking in this market. Now, the second part is you lost Canelo to him. I could see that, you know, obviously when I was at Golden Boy, there was that, man. But now he lost Canelo, and it's not lost. It's not like you own a product like the TV or the car or the, you know, you worked with him for a few years. You're grateful. You know, hey, move on. He will move on. But it's not like Eddie or Matchroom lost them to Golden Boy. So it's like you're celebrating something that makes no sense. But to each his own. What I'm saying is you throw the punch first and then, you know, ask second.
Great point.
Absolutely,
Great point.
absolutely. Look, we're going to go ahead and proceed here, guys. First, just really quick on the poll. 88% want Mungia versus Berlanga. All right. And I have a feeling if you do a million polls, that fight will always win. It just makes the most sense. Andy Ruiz and Deontay Wilder are reportedly in talks. They both confirmed it. And Andy apparently, according to reports, wants close to 50-50 or 50-50. Wilder feels he's pricing himself out. Wilder's saying, look, the only reason people are going to tune in is because they want to know how fast am I going to knock you out. They call him a short, fat man with short arms. That's the only reason his hand speed looks as fast. So I like the trash talk. It is what it is. But are we going to get this fight, Joe Habib? Is this fight going to happen? And what are your thoughts on this whole their talk right now?
I have no problem with Andy Ruiz asking for 50-50. You know, I hate it when these fans will come in and they'll criticize a fighter for trying to negotiate on his own behalf. Put yourself in that fighter situation, or put yourself when you go on a job interview. You're always trying to get the most money you can from the person that you're interviewing with. So I hate it when people say, oh, well, this guy's not worth this guy's not worth that, he's not the A side, whatever. Obviously, we do know that, you know, Deontay Wilder may have a little bit of leverage here because he has been on pay-per-view more. He's headlined more. He's had that trilogy with Fury. But again, I don't hate the fact that Andy Ruiz is trying to get the best deal for himself, you know, so there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think this fight happens, actually. I think because of that Saudi situation that's supposed to happen at the end of the year, but now they're saying it's going to get pushed to January. So at first thought, I would say no, but now that I'm kind of thinking about it, it is possible because that Saudi situation, it's not etched in stone. That, you know, there's been a lot of offer talk, but there's not a contract, and obviously it's such a far way out. But I found myself going back and forth, but I don't think the fight happens. I just don't. I think that the egos involved between both fighters will probably kill the fight.
All right, okay. Lukey, is this a fight you want to see? Would you like to see Wilder versus Ruiz, or would you rather them do something else? And do you think Ruiz is worth something close to 50-50?
I mean, you're only worth what the market will pay. So it's always good to try to get more money, especially on the tail end of your career. Me personally, you got to remember, I'm a hardcore fight fan. I'm someone that puts most of my life into boxing. I would rather see these fighters in other fights, personally. I've always felt Andy Ruiz is a really hard fight for Deontay Wilder because Deontay Wilder is going to have to deal with someone who has head movement and the ability to turn offense into defense, defense into offense. That, I think, is some of the issues Tyson Fury presented, was just kind of like when he made a defensive move, he'd hit him. For me, it's just that there's so many unanswerable questions, right? And boxing, to me, great matchmaking and great fights are when we get unanswered questions, we get an answer on that evening. And for me, I don't know if the answer to the question of Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz is a question I want asked. I want to know if Andy Ruiz can get up for a big fight and be the great fighter he was when he beat Joshua. And for Wilder, I want to see if he can get back to the level of confidence he was before Tyson Fury. I don't know if these two present the type of fight that makes that fight for me. So honestly, I'm not married to the result. I'll tune in and watch it, but do I care if it's made? I've got other things in life to worry about.
All right. Well said. I want to shout out to Elazer Feliciano for becoming a member. He's a Silver Dragon. I appreciate the support, brother.
And share the show, bro. If you're tuning in, guess what? They're not asking for money. These guys with local 22s, like Beeb says. Share the show. Right. Share the show. Tell a friend to tell a friend.
You're the man. All right.
Master like.
So that's right. Hey, Roberto Diaz, it's kind of exciting having someone who was a matchmaker and has worked with fighters and still working with fighters directly. What are your thoughts on this matchup, Ruiz Wilder? Is it more to you than people just want to tune in to see how fast Wilder knocks him out, or is this an interesting matchup in your opinion?
No, I think obviously they both have a good amount of fans and a strong fan base that think their guy would win. I don't like the matchup personally. I would be against it stylistically wise. It doesn't make for what the Wilder fans are wanting to see. Wilder's right hand is for real. I did 33 of his fights, pro debut to the world title fight. His right hand will put a lot of people to sleep. But like Lukey said, that target's not going to be still. And it'll present a lot of problems. He's punching really down because of the height difference. I'd rather see Wilder against Joshua, which now you got two giants in there. Both have suspect chins. Both have big punches. There's probably going to be multiple knockdowns. And that's a fight that I could see over and over and over versus maybe a tying up, a sloppy fight. I fell down because I was off balance. I don't like the matchup itself. I think it's too high of a risk if there's a potential Wilder-Joshua fight there.
Okay, all right. Mungia, Mario. What about you, Mario? Like I remember, Mario. I'm gonna put you on the spot. I'm sorry, but I got to do it. Do you remember when Wilder didn't like the reporting you were doing on the Boxing Voice and what he said about you?
I do remember. Actually.
Do you want because he called you a short, fat Mexican or something like that? Like, do you want a short, fat Mexican to fight for you? Like, what do you say?
So badly, I've wanted this fight for so long. It's been roughly about 5 years now since Deontay Wilder went on the Boxing Voice and put a live out on Instagram calling me a short, fat Mexican. And what's funny is, like, rumors of him fighting Andy Ruiz surfaced, like, not soon after, or not long after, I mean. I want this fight. I do. I agree with Roberto. I think that stylistically it doesn't work super well for Andy, but I also agree with Lukey, and I think that Andy has things that can offer resistance to a Wilder victory. Ultimately, as bad as I want this fight, I want the fight that we've all wanted more, AJ Wilder. Those guys should have fought 3 times by now and made a gajillion dollars. Why they haven't, I don't know. Why it's taken this long, I can't say. But all I know is that fight feels more on the horizon than it's ever felt since we were talking about it the first few times. So you put all that into the mix, I can understand why an Andy Ruiz fight wouldn't come to fruition right away or wouldn't happen in that time span. That said, we should fight for these types of things. Like Lukey said that kind of where it's like, you know, I would rather see the AJ fight, or we should put like all the momentum into getting that fight secured, and I agree. But I hate that we have to make that choice so much. Like, why not it be this, you know, sort of tournament in a way? I know Andy wouldn't get the fight, but Wilder go in, have his fight against the, you know, fat Mexican that, you know, as he called me, right? And see what they can do. I know it'd be a fun fight. And then let's have White and AJ. You know, everybody thinks they know what those outcomes would be, but the heavyweight division has proven one thing to me over the last few decades. It can be as unpredictable as anything in sports, and that power in that division is a game changer.
Well said, well said. We have the one and only Dave from it's not longer the 408. I forgot your area code. What is it now?
Vegas, baby.
Okay,
702. He's a 702 now.
Yeah, Dave 702 now. Hey, what do you think? Andy Ruiz, Deontay Wilder, does that pique your interest? Is it even worth all these negotiations?
It does pique my interest. I've liked this fight for some time. Of course, you know, both of these guys are trying to write the second part of their, the second part of their book here. There's a lot of redemption involved. And for Andy Ruiz, someone who's been largely inconsistent throughout his career, while stylistically you guys have mentioned that maybe it's not the best fight, I think the storyline still sells, and storylines is what makes boxing great. You know, African Americans, Latinos, Mexican Americans. It's a great story to sell, but what'll actually happen if the fight does come to fruition? Stylistically, you know, an Andy Ruiz that's unfocused is a lousy fight. You know, and this is a great stepping stone for Deontay Wilder to, you know, get his feet back in the mix in the very top echelon and the elite. And then maybe we can get those great fights, because we've seen time and time again, these great fights in the heavyweight division have so many obstacles. So I'll take this fight for now. And Andy Ruiz has an opportunity for his fan base again to maybe show that he could strike magic twice, you know, unlikely, but possible. And that's what makes this storyline great.
That's right. Everybody, make sure you subscribe to the Shoeshine Boxing here on YouTube and he has his co-host, Drew Evo. They do a show every Monday. Hey, I'm gonna take it back to you. All right, Mr. 702. What is it again? I'm already forgetting.
702.
702.
I'm melting, brother. I'm gonna be melting soon.
There you go. Look, there's a women's fight. big fight, undisputed, 168 pounds. Crews-Dezurn against Savannah Marshall, 168 pounds. This is an undisputed fight. Do you got Crews-Dezurn, or will it be martial law? What do you got, Shushan?
Oh, I had the pleasure of meeting Crews-Dezurn, the heavy-hitting diva, back when she beat Cornejo about 4 years back at the Hard Rock. I remember that night vividly because I met her and her husband. Not only is she a fantastic fighter inside of the ring, but a fantastic person outside the ring. And while I am rooting for her, Savannah Marshall is not going to be an easy walk in the park. You know, up at the upper weight classes for women, the talent pool is much, much smaller. So she's had that ability to, despite losing her very first fight to the self-described greatest woman of all time boxer, she's had kind of limited opposition, you know, as champion. So this is going to be a real test for her. And actually, I think this is a 50-50 toss-up. And while I'm rooting for her, I think Savannah Marshall could come away and pull this off on Saturday night.
All right. Mario Munguia, who do you got in this fight? Crews-Dezurn retains, or will we enact martial law? What do you got?
Yeah, I think Shushan's got a great point. I think Marshall is going to be one of the toughest outings of Cruz's entire career. I think what we're getting on Saturday is exactly what's helped to raise the profile of women's boxing. Like when I first started in the sport 10 years ago, women's boxing, like I had no idea about it. I think I knew maybe 2 or 3 fighters by name. I probably knew more amateur female fighters than I did pro. And the change that I've seen in the last decade has been incredible. And I'll go on to say that while I am picking Franchon Crews-Dezurn officially, I think this is a 50-50 fight. I really do. And the last point I'll make real quick is I think that Franchon Crews has done something really special if you look at it, right? Like her career could have easily been derailed after she lost. And she was able to use her branding and all these kinds of things on the outside to market herself. And she still got the job done inside the ring. That's the most important part. But you can look at a fighter like Franchon Crews-Dezurn and look at them and say, you know what, even when the chips are stacked, even when you're not getting these favorable matchups or these favorable points on the cards or whatever, you can still do something about it. She is guerrilla promoted, and I applaud every aspect of her pro career so far.
Okay, all right. Luki, who do you favor in this matchup?
I mean, I think Savannah Marshall is one of these like Hall of Fame trajectory fighters. I think she'll outbox Franchon Crews, but I think there's like an assumption by some naive people thinking that because Savannah Marshall has knocked out a lot of fighters that she's going to hurt Franchon. This is going to look dramatically different than most people. I think Franchon's going to be the aggressor. I think Savannah's going to have to think a lot more than we've seen her have to do. She's been aggressive and kind of impose her will. She's going to be the smaller fighter in this fight. I'm more than confident in saying that, and I also think Franchon hits harder than her. I think the elephant in the room is there's a mandatory opponent, I believe, if I understand the sanctioning body, is a Shadejah Green. And she's knocking out everybody, and she's a tough person. So not just do we get this fight that determines a great champion, what did we talk about? Let's create pathways that make sense. So the winner of this goes into a Shadejah Green. She's promoted by Jake Paul. Hopefully they get that fight going, and that's an interesting fight. So I have to favor, in a roundabout way, Savannah Marshall, because I think Savannah just has more tools, but I think people are greatly disrespecting Franchon as an undisputed champion, as someone that hits hard, and someone that had to earn her spot in the sport. I think that that's been missed by a lot of people. Is she came in as a B-side opponent to Clarissa Shields. She's created her path to where she's at. So I think it's an interesting fight.
Okay. All right. Roberto Diaz, who do you favor in this matchup?
Well, I was there at the Hard Rock. I made the fight with Cornejo. She didn't only come in B-side against Shields. She came in B-side against Cornejo. She's come in B-side her whole career. And look, she's got all the belts. She's tough. She's a tough woman because of how she was brought up. Golden Boy signed her after she won that title. Because, in fact, at the fighter meeting, she had me rooting for her when I heard her story. That's who Franchon is. She has a story, like Luki said. There's a story there. Nothing's been easy. She's earned it the tough way. She lost the fight on the points with Alejandra later. Then it was reversed. We had to go get the belts back. So it's always been like everything's stacked against her. I don't see it different this time. I see her as the aggressor. She won't get tired. She'll be nonstop. Marshall has to use her, her height, her reach. I see Franchon winning, but not getting the decision, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Joe Beeb, how do you see this matchup, brother?
Like Lukey said, a lot of people make a lot of Savannah Marshall's power, but she can also box too. She's a very sophisticated boxer. She does know how to use her range and distance very well, and she's great at catching you at the end of her shots. Franchon isn't like Clarissa Shields, because I know Clarissa Shields' name came up a lot during the press conference today, and she's not Clarissa Shields. And I thought Savannah Marshall had a great performance against Clarissa Shields. You can arguably say she may have won that fight. It was very close, I thought, right? But this is a different kettle of fish. You're not going to have that quick footwork. You're not going to have that in and out movement. You're just going to have someone coming forward. And I don't mean to say this in a disparaging way, but it's a different style, and I don't think it's as difficult a style for Savannah Marshall to have to deal with and figure out. Because all I'm hearing mostly is, Franchon Cruz is tough. She's big. She's strong. She's aggressive. But what are you going to do with that when you have someone who can keep you at the end of her jab and line you up with the right hand and keep you at the end of everything? If you don't have the foot speed to close that gap, then there's going to be some problems. So I just have a hard time seeing and believing that she's just going to barrel her way in and have her way with Savannah Marshall in this fight. So I think it is possible that Savannah could stop her. I could see her catching her at the end of a big right hand, but her coming forward, because she does come forward. Sometimes she does lean face first into shots, and she's very wide with the shots. I could see her walking into a counter right hand. So
Beeb, I like you. I gotta save you here, bro. It's not happening.
I think it can happen.
Just don't do it. She's just too big, bro. I get what you're saying. It makes sense, but you've never seen how big this Franchon is big, bro.
I seen Savannah Marshall knock out girls that are very durable.
And I've seen some really good fighters knock out people, and then they go win world title fights, and it's different.
Hannah Reagan is a tough girl, man. She's a tough girl, and she went to sleep.
I care about you. I just don't want you to just say she's gonna win the decision.
Nah, you got to be real with yourself. You got to take the emotion out of it. I mean, if you like somebody,
I got $20 right now. $20, Beeb. She's going to decision.
Oh, I'll take that because Savannah's heavily favored. So yeah, I'll take the $20.
But it's not heavily favored for the knockout. That's for the win, though, right?
Look, I'm going to be very brief here. We are going to declare martial law on Saturday, and Savannah Marshall will win this fight. Like I'm telling you right now, she's going to win this fight. And I don't know if she's going to stop her. I'm not as confident as Beeb about that.
She can stop her, man.
But but it's possible. But I'm not going to guarantee it either. But I think she'll win. I honestly think if anybody's underestimating somebody's power, Lukey, it's you. You're severely underestimating the power of Savannah Marshall.
I the Hall of Fame matchmaker.
She stiffened Hannah Rankin, right? And Clarissa Shields couldn't do that. And
she's putting since I haven't seen a
this
woman.
Is a girl. Don't forget, this is a girl that fought as high as light heavyweight, and she's gonna be big. She's gonna be bigger and stronger at 168 than she was at 160 against Clarissa Shields.
Let me quote Clarissa Shields.
Tell you, man.
I'll quote her. I'll go ahead, Roberto.
Alejandra Jimenez had won a title at heavyweight. She came down to fight for it. So she was a big, strong girl.
But she ain't coming down. Savannah ain't coming down. She's going up. And she got the frame to hold it.
Yeah.
I just think
at the end of the day, they gotta be. I mean, whoever wins, it's gonna be a great fight. But it's gonna be Green that's gonna come in here and take over anyway. Because That girl's a beast.
So that girl's really good. But I just want to say this.
Yeah.
The way I seen Savannah put lights out, you don't really see women do that. I'm sorry. I just don't see that. Against common opponent, the world in women's boxing is not that big. They fought a common opponent before.
That's why Franchon had to fight like Maricela twice, and you've seen Maricela fight Shields for a title. There's not a lot of women worldwide in the rankings at 168. There's tons at the 126 and the 112 and the 115s and 8. But as you get bigger, there's less.
But Roberto, let's keep this in mind too, right? We don't see a lot of knockouts in general in women's boxing. This, but before the Clarissa Shields fight, Savannah Marshall was coming off like an 8-fight knockout streak. Like even the top women, like Clarissa Shields, even the top women, Katie Taylor, they're not putting girls out like this. This girl's got some special power.
It has a lot to do with the 2 minutes. It has a lot to do with the 2 minutes. I mean, you got a seasoned fighter, bell rings. They're not going to come out sloppy to not get that knockout.
Well, that adds to the point.
And then the round's over.
Here's the thing. That makes Savannah knocking this girls out even more impressive.
Yeah, because you got to get it done quicker. You don't have the time to work with. Because think about this, Roberto. If these girls had a fight, like for instance, you look at that Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano fight in that round 5. Ask yourself if there's another minute in that round, does Katie Taylor get out of it?
Absolutely, she doesn't. Serrano wins by knockout. The way she
That's what I'm saying. So it's even more impressive being able to get these girls out of there in 2 minutes.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. But that's the thing. In the high level fights, I support the 3 minutes. I support the 3 minutes. When you're at this level and you get a lot of opposing, I had a long conversation one day with the WBC, Mauricio. Their structure's different. They can get hurt. Yes, if they're being hit by men, but they're being hit by the same women, the same structure. I just think it's fair if both sides agree. I did it. Senicia Estrada and Marlene Esparza on the Canelo undercard was 3 minutes.
Shout out to you for that.
I forgot about that. You're right.
Shout out to you for that. That was beautiful.
I push for that, and I think when you get the unification fights, champion versus champion, that's when it applies. You don't do it in the 4, 6, or 8 rounds, but you do it at the elite level if both sides want.
Yeah, and I just want to quote the quote herself. Now, right now she won't admit it, but I know what she said. Post fight, what did she say? Oh, she hits hard. I couldn't see out of my right eye after she hit me with a good shot for like the last 4 rounds. That's what she said. Okay.
But do you know what's going on here? And no disrespect to anybody, but Franchon Cruz does have a great story. She's a tough woman. But make no mistake, man. Like a fight is a fight, man. Styles make fights. Your story is your story. You have to fight. You have to fight the fight, right? So.
Well, 100%. Shout out to Nando Llamas. Jab the like, please. Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, brother. And yes, guys, make sure you hit the like button. Look, we need to talk about Jared Anderson. He's going to be fighting Charles Martin. I don't believe, and if somebody, I want to know, but I don't think anybody's picking Charles Martin to win, even though he's a former world champion. And while this is considered a step up for Jared Anderson, I myself am very confident Jared Anderson is going to not only dominate, but stop Charles Martin in this fight. I just wanted you guys' thoughts on the fight and your general feeling about Jared, Big Baby Anderson. Let's start with you, Roberto.
I think I agree with you 100%. I think it's obviously a step up on paper because now he's fighting a former world champion. The right way you're progressing. He's been blowing everybody out. Now you're going to blow out a former world champion. That's the progression, and I don't see anything different. I mean, especially in the heavyweights, you're going to get knockouts. This one will be quick and easy.
When do you think, if maybe you feel he is already, is he ready for the big names, the Wilders, the Furies, the Usyks, and all that? Like, how far is he from there, Roberto?
I think he's still a few fights away. Obviously, what you need to do now is mentally prepare him. Look, he knocks out a former world champion. That's going to do a lot for here. But not only that, start showing the world who this is. Not just, okay, you put him in against a champion right now, but nobody really knows him yet, only the diehards. No, let's start getting those knockouts of those names now that people are familiar with. And then all of a sudden, people start cheering for him. He's fun to watch. He's young. He's strong. He's the real baby Miller, or the real big baby. Sorry, Miller. No Miller. Real big baby.
Yeah, that's right.
I always mix them up too all the time.
Yeah, that's right. I was hoping they would fight each other for the right to keep
the rights.
The big baby title.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if anybody wants to win the big baby title.
Does the loser become the little baby?
Yeah, well, whatever it is. Like I'm the only big baby. You know what I mean?
The loser becomes the other guy's
Miller.
baby. The loser becomes the other guy's baby, and he becomes the daddy.
I become your daddy. There you go. Hey, Dave. Do you agree that it's going to be a pretty easy routing here for Big Baby Anderson, or do you see some resistance from Martin? And what are your thoughts on Jared Anderson and his trajectory right now?
You know, to put something in perspective, I was at his debut fight, which is also the same night Xander Zayas made his professional debut.
Come up to me. I was there
In Reno?
Why did you say hello?
I didn't know you yet, man. I would have taken all kinds of pics with you, Dookie. So I'm impressed with his development. Like they mentioned, listen, when you have a contender like him, and I said Xander Zayas made his debut the same night, he is already fighting a former world champion. But granted, unlike Andy Ruiz, who won his world championship legitimately and in fantastic, impressive fashion against AJ, Martin won it like by a fluke. It was like a fluke performance thing that he had that title for one shot.
What did Vin Diesel say? You can win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning, right?
A win is a win.
Well, he won by an ACL tear. How's that?
Exactly.
He won by an ACL tear.
Martin is a great scalp on his resume, right? But Tim Tszyu this year, Tim Tszyu legitimately beat up Harrison, a world champion as well. And this is what I do like to see. I like to see contenders that look like they're on a championship path take on a former champion so we can kind of gauge how they do. But I don't, he's going to blow out Martin. The question is how many rounds? Definitely under 6. He's going to blow him out, get a stoppage, and then what? Now I'm ready to see him mix it up with the top 5 guys in the heavyweight division. I think he's on a much faster track than someone like, say, Xander Zayas. And the sky is the limit for him. If there's any truth to this rumor going around that he hurt or knocked down Tyson Fury in sparring camp in Las Vegas, I really think we're looking at a future American world champion in the heavyweight division.
Okay, there we go. And I by the way, I co-signed that. I think he is definitely a future world champion. Joe Habib, your thought? Do you are you in line? Is this going to be like a step up on paper, but he's going to blow him out of the water, or do you maybe you think Martin's going to go the distance? Maybe you're going to recommend a bet or something. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, it is a step up, but it's still not the penthouse, right? So this is the right fight at the right time for Jared Anderson. So I think they know what they're doing. I have a hard time seeing Charles Martin going the distance here, and I think everyone's probably going to agree with me. So that's really not much to say about it, to be honest.
And what's your overall thoughts about him as a fighter, his trajectory, and what do you see in his near future?
Oh, he's got a lot of potential. He's very athletic. You can just see, how instinctive he is in the ring. He's like a natural fighter. Like you see sometimes. I hate to do this, but when you look at a guy like Berlanga and you watch him in there, you can just see that. To me, it's not really coming natural. He's kind of forcing it a little bit. Where with Jared Anderson, everything is like extemporaneous. Like he's not even thinking. Like he's just doing things on the fly. He's like that adaptive, reactive ability that only gifted fighters have. And he can make adjustments on the fly. Like he can, start off coming forward in orthodox and then end up being in southpaw, and you don't even know how he got there before you know it if you're the opponent. So I just think the guy's special. I think he's got tons of potential.
Most definitely. Okay. All right. Mario Munguia, thoughts on the fight? Or I have a feeling you're going to pick the upset special. I have this feeling.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
And what do you think of Jared Anderson just in general?
Yeah, listen, I love this fight. I think that not only do you have to give him credit for stepping up and put it the best, right fight at the right time. That's when we say stepping up, that's what we mean, right? But you also have to look at the fact that the trajectory's there. Look, anybody that was paying attention during the, let's call it the Cold Wars or whatever, our guest Roberto here and his team gave a playbook on how to build heavyweights. Like, this was the Klitschko era, and everybody was like, okay, the next great American heavyweight, like that was like Silicon Valley. Everybody was trying to get that next great American heavyweight. What they were able to do with guys like Seth Mitchell, and don't forget, Wilder's entire career was started and launched in that Golden Boy stratosphere and using that Golden Boy playbook. So looking at that playbook, that is exactly what's going on with Jared Anderson right now. He's been in a position where he's fought the Jerry Forrest, right? The George Arias, like those are the step up fights. Like it's the rungs on a ladder, and you're not at the penthouse yet. Exactly what Beeb said, but Charles Martin is certainly that next rung on a ladder. And don't forget, Charles Martin has a fairly high knockout rate as well. At the end of the day, it's power. That's what you want to see. But look, with Jared Anderson and his future, I think he is special. The Spurs drafted their first round draft pick, Victor Wembanyama, I think is how you say it. And people were like freaking out about him. They're saying, look, he's got the height of a Yao Ming, but he's got the ball handling ability and the shots of a little guy or whatever. And that's what I saw in Jared Anderson. Not the same thing as far as like, he's like the size of heavyweight, fights like a featherweight. No, not necessarily style-wise, but the way he moves, it goes into what Beeb said, the way he's able to kind of switch directions and give misdirection and the little things he does right, you can see it. Like, he started doing these things like during the bubble, where he was looking at the head and aiming to the body. Like, I'm not saying that's like a super high level thing, but it's those little aspects of fighters' games that don't get tweaked until they've already built themselves up into the fighter that they are, or at least close to that. And so at 14-0, or what was he, 14-0, right? Yeah, 14-0. That's impressive. It's impressive that I'm seeing his building and gradually growing. This feels like a real development of a kid who's got something special, and everybody in his team is working to really, let that come out. He will
something to point out is he has some of the best matchmakers in the business. Yes. Working, so they're doing a hell of a job, like they've done for many years with a lot of the fighters.
Great point.
Well said. Lukey, any upset special?
I mean, look. Jared's gonna come out. He's gonna do a cool dance. It's gonna be really fun. He's gonna stop him. It's gonna be fun. Let's get him in with Joseph Parker at the end of the year. That's a great fight. That's a good former world champion.
Very good one.
I don't think anyone's out here like, oh man, what's this fight going to look like? This is going to be all about the Toledo fight fans. How do they embrace Jared? You got, like Roberto Diaz said, you got Brad Goodman, Bruce Trampler, best in the business, some of the best in the business that are putting together his career. This is supposed to be an iconic moment of his transition from being a co-main event fighter to a main event fighter. And if all things work out well, he'd return in like November, December in a fight with a Joe Parker-like fighter. And what I'm watching is for him to look the part of a future superstar. I think when he has his great moments, he looks like a young Riddick Bowe, and he needs to look like he is $1 million fighter in this fight. So for fans that are tuning in to see a competitive fight, I'm sorry, that's not what I think you're going to see. But if you want to see a future superstar and see if he has the attributes to go to the next level and be a pay-per-view guy, well, that's what you're watching for.
Okay, all right. I'm going to ask you guys to give me a round. What round does he stop him in? What round do you think this fight ends in, Roberto? 3? Okay. Shoeshine?
4.
Beeb?
Say 5.
5, okay. Mario?
I was going to say 3 to 5. I guess I'll go 6 then.
Dose. I'll do
rounds.
Yeah, I like round 2 too. I like round 2. I think he might want to put on a show though. I think he might. So maybe 3 sounds good too. So
3 was what.
But in the gym, from what I've heard, he's kind of energetic and he likes to show off. I think when he hurts him, he's just going to get this guy out of there.
For sure. All right. Well, there you go. Let's welcome Major Key in the building. Subscribe to his channel, Major Key Boxing. How's it going, Major?
What's going on, Major?
What's going on, brothers? How y'all doing?
Good, man.
We're good. You came in right at this topic, so let's ask you this question. Jared Anderson, Martin, what round does he stop him in?
Jared Anderson, look, Charles Martin, man, I don't know. He's damaged goods. The way he got clocked by Luis Ortiz, man, and he never really faced that, tough competition, because every time he did, he lost. After the AJ fight, he fought somebody, 30-20? So I mean, that's not really, he doesn't really have a really solid resume as far as his wins are concerned. So I see him getting knocked out early because Big Baby's, he's a very aggressive. So I would say round 5. Round 5.
Round 5. Okay, fair enough. We're gonna go ahead and proceed here, guys. I want to talk about Bivol. All right. Bivol says he's open. This is a story on boxingscene.com. That's where I saw the story. You guys can check it out at boxingscene.com. Bivol says he's open to moving down 168 pounds. Once again, talking about going down 168 to possibly face Charlo if Charlo beats Canelo, right? How serious should we take Bivol about going back down to 168? Should we take him at his word? Because he's talked about going down to fight Canelo at that weight as well. And the second part of the question, what's going on with Bivol, right? Is this guy going to go to obscurity? Do you think Hail Mary will hit? He'll get a big fight, maybe with Better Beef or something in Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure, but what do you make of Bivol's situation, Mario? And do you think he's serious about going to 168?
Yes, I do, because he's put himself in a position where he needs to do something like that. I think that the situation that he's in, first of all, if he were to do that, that would totally change my belief of what went wrong in the whole Canelo Bivol thing. Like, I never thought he was serious about 168. I thought it was cap. I really did. And I guess he was serious. And bravo to him for wanting to conquer another division, I guess. And knowing that if he's not going to get the Better Beef fight, then, he's going to make his own lane. I appreciate that. I think, though, when you look at the bigger picture, right, like when you kind of focus out and look at the macro picture of it all, essentially what you did was give up more money to fight Canelo for, let's be honest, less money to lose weight and have to fight Jamal Charlo or whoever. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, whoever else it is, it doesn't matter who it is. That's what is going to be looked at. Well, that's how it's going to be viewed, I mean.
You're muted, sir.
You're on mute, D.
Oh, my bad. Okay. Hey, Major Key, what do you make of Bivol's situation right now? He didn't get the Canelo rematch, so that's off the table at least for another year. And he's talking about going to 168. Do you take him at his word? And what do you make of his current situation?
Well, Charlo's not going to beat Canelo, so we could scratch that idea. But let's say something crazy would have happened like that. Then I really feel like why not Benavidez? Why Charlo? Like I want to see a real test. I don't want to see him go to, Charlo's moving up for the first time. Let's say he does beat Canelo, and you got this dude moving down. But it was a tough time for him to even want to do that with Canelo. I just don't see it. I just don't see what the purpose would be. He's got better BF at his weight division. What's the purpose of moving down and fight Charlo? I don't see the intrigue in that.
Okay, right. And what do you make of his whole situation right now? I mean, it seems like he's between a rock and a hard place. WBC won't sanction his fights, according to Mauricio Suleiman. Aram said they're not interested in the Better Beef fight at the moment. He didn't get the Canelo rematch. What does he do?
Well, I mean, you've got other up and comers. I can't because this is a really tricky division because you already have the top dogs there. You already have the top dogs, but does he fight? Does he fight Yard or something? I don't know what he does, to be honest with you. But going down to fight Charlo, we're talking about next year. Charlo's just taking 2 years off. You think he's going to fight him? You know what I'm saying? So what are we really talking about, when it comes to it? right? You're talking about after Canelo. He just took 2 years off, and he's going to fight Canelo. We know he's not going to beat Canelo. So, I mean, he just needs to scratch that whole idea and start coming up with a realistic plan. You know, let's talk about try to entice, you know, why don't you go down, like I said, fight Benavidez or try to entice Benavidez to come up for his belts. I don't know, but Charlo to me is not a realistic, you know, plan for the future.
We got a new poll, guys. Is Bivol serious about going to 168? And by the way, Mungia Berlanga won it was 2-1-sided, 91%. Edwin Castillo, Bivol is light heavyweight pitbull Cruz and trying to age out Beterbiev. Before Bob said no, Bivol, the negotiations failed because Bivol wanted more money and avoided the rematch. I'm assuming you're talking about the rematch with Canelo. Hey, Luki, is Bivol serious? He sounds like he's serious. Like he's going to go down to 168 and get that smoke.
Why not? You know, Bivol's in this weird spot where it's like typically you find fighters like Arislandi Lara. He loses a close fight to Canelo, you know, which I think Canelo really did win. But, you know, people will ruin your whole day and try to like argue with you about the outcome of that fight when no one really cares. The fight is the fight. But Bivol's never lost a fight, but he's so friggin' good at what he does, and the fans aren't drawn to what he does, that he can't get a fight in the first. The guy's coming off a 2022 Boxer of the Year, and no network is offering him a main event spot in the first 2 quarters of the year. That's pretty friggin' telling, you know, and he's kind of waiting for these opportunities with other people. At this point, at least from where I'm standing and where I'm thinking, he's got to make his own opportunity. He's got to think about how can I go and pursue it. And I guess going down to 168 is his version of how do I make an opportunity. I like the guy. I think he's good, but that's kind of where I see his situation.
There you go. There you go. By the way, the thought that Charlo would pull off the upset against Canelo and then like fight the guy that beat Canelo, like I think he would rather rematch Canelo. But that's not here or there.
Yeah.
Roberto, we need your matchmaker cap here. What could be done about Bivol right now? He's kind of in a tough situation at the moment.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. One of the best fighters in boxing, but it's historically been seen. We've seen it before. Not because you beat the man, do you become the man. You could beat Manny Pacquiao, you could beat De La Hoya, you could beat Canelo, and not take over his position, where everybody's calling him to draw him to be on their network or promoters fighting for him. I agree. He's just that good, but personality's a little quiet, a little slow. You know, him going to 68, yes, that is very possible. He's not a big light heavyweight to begin with. He can do the 168. But who at 168 is going to want to fight Bivol? Nobody. If Charlo was to beat Canelo, big if, and he took 2 years off prior to that, you could probably see Charlo taking off 10 years after beating Canelo. So that's not going to happen. Benavidez, which would be a great fight, they're not going to let him fight Bivol before he fights a Canelo, because the bigger money is going to be with Canelo. So it's sad, but that is the situation where Bivol's in. He's high risk, low reward for everybody. Nobody's going to want to fight him. They got to keep him busy to keep him focused, or he's going to get bored and say, you know what, I'm out of here.
All right. Joe Habib. I mean, what do you think of his situation? Do you think he's serious? Do you think he overplayed his hand with the Canelo negotiations? Do you think it just organically ended up where he is? He's a victim in all this. What's your take?
You know, Roberto took the words right out of my mouth. It's like, it's not what you want to do, it's what can you do, because having that belt is the leverage for him, right? Like Bernard Hopkins said, you know, I got all the belts and all roads led to me. So these guys would have to fight me. So that's why he needs to become undisputed at light heavyweight. And that's the way he's going to kind of increase his profile, because then all roads will lead to him. He goes down to 168. What does he have? He's going to be challenging for someone else's title. And there's bigger names down there at 168, like Roberto said. So who's going to want to fight him at 168? So he can go down there, but he's not going to get the fights that he wants, in my opinion. So I think once he realizes that, he's going to probably go right back after his search for Archer Benavidez, because that's the big fight. I know the Middle East is interested in that fight. That they could put a lot of money up for that fight, and I think they want that fight, whether it be Dubai or Saudi. And I think if he becomes undisputed, then then people start giving him pound for pound, like top pound for pound recognition.
He should be number 1, bro.
Sure, he should. But what I'm saying is, in a world that it's not fair, I'm dealing in the world that I have, not the world that I want.
But would you put him as number 1 because he beat Canelo? Number 1
at the time. I hate pound for pound lists, but if I'm going to follow the pound for pound rules, then yeah. I mean, I think it would.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
Yeah, I can't have someone above someone that after they lose, and then you can say, oh well, that's not Canelo's weight class, whatever. But I mean, they're one weight class below, whatever. But yeah, so I hate this whole pound for pound thing. But I think if he becomes undisputed, sort of like Usyk beating Joshua and being unified in 2 weight classes, I think if he becomes undisputed, that will add to his profile. It's still not going to make him Canelo, but it'll help him more so than going down and trying to win 1 title from someone who's probably not even going to want to fight him in the first place.
Hey, really quick, East Woodson says, Dragon Style, been through a lot, stayed watching when I could. Last few years were real life for me. Respect and love to the whole chat. It's E. Woodson giving acknowledgement and props. Hey, man, I haven't seen you in a while, bro. But I'm glad to hear that you're still here with us, and I hope everything's all right and everything gets better for you. So
always
God bless.
Community here, brother. Always
for sure.
Community here.
Hey, Shoeshine, talk to me. Like, what's going on with Bivol, man? First of all, do you believe him? Do you think he's serious about going to 168? And what is realistic, in your opinion, like options here?
Well, first of all, I absolutely believe him and believe what Gail Falkenthal over at nyfights.com, Lukey and Mario's partners over there at NY Fights, when she said that he was dead serious about coming down to compete at 168, and you hear his trainer Diaz say he can make the weight and fight effectively the same way he does a light heavyweight. Yes, I believe that. Will Charlo ever beat Canelo? I don't think anyone on this panel thinks that's fathomable. Not one bit. But by him signaling that he's willing to come down and face Charlo if he becomes the undisputed and pulls off the upset, what he's having is buyer's remorse, and he's partially a victim of his own success. And he's also partly responsible in the negotiations for the rematch with Canelo, and somehow thinking that he was the A side or equal, even though he clearly beat Canelo and gave him a schooling. He's not the A side. He just simply doesn't carry the charisma to be a global crossover superstar the way Canelo Alvarez has been or the way Anthony Joshua is. That's not him. So despite his talent being worthy of that, he just doesn't match it in the personality department to be the A side, to be a big global star. Now he finds himself almost coming across desperate talking like that he's willing to come down on 168 if this happens or if that happens. Listen, there's only 2 possible opponents that I think would give him a really good fight and have a high profile. Is David Benavidez has a high profile right now. And a real challenge would be the Cuban star and David Morrell. Is whether or not you could entice either of those guys to come up to 175 because they have a high profile name like David Benavidez, or because they present a really big threat, to bring them up to 175 and entice them into an opportunity to become and take his belts at 175. Because he's obviously can't find a dance partner. And that's his doing now, right? He can't find a dance partner to elevate his name or elevate how much money he can capitalize with his career. I think trying to make a fight with David Benavidez would be a fantastic fight, whether he can melt down on 168 or whether he can drag him up. And also, he can see if he can negotiate something with David Morrell. David Morrell has the WBA minor belt, regular belt. And if he takes that from David Morrell, he puts himself in a position to fight Canelo Alvarez for all of his titles.
Absolutely, man. Well, look, we're halfway through this year. Bivol has not fought this year. And speaking of halfway through the year, we're pretty 1-2 more days and the half year is over. I can't believe it. It seems like Christmas was just yesterday, but this year is going by quick. Maybe they go by quicker when we're older or something. I don't know, but who are the front runners so far? Right, we're going to start one at a time with the fight of the year right now. What is the front runner for fight of the year right now, Joe Habib?
I may be in the minority here, but I really loved that Anthony Yard Hunter Beterbiev fight. I thought that was a phenomenal fight. It had a lot of ebbs and flows to it. It had drama. Anthony Yard, I even had him winning before he got stopped. I mean, obviously Beterbiev was coming back, but I thought he did some good work early on. It was the first time in my life that I really saw Beterbiev buzzed and hurt. I'm not saying he was in danger of getting stopped, but I've seen, he got backed up. He kind of wobbled a little bit, and his face was actually busted up, not from headbutts this time, but from punches. So I loved this fight, and I loved the way Beterbiev came back in the end. So yeah, I thought this was a great fight.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let's go ahead and get Roberto on. I believe he needs to get going. You need to get going.
Sorry, do you guys hear me? I lost you guys for a sec. I had to get off the computer, jump on the phone.
Okay, no problem. All right. Hey, Roberto, I have a question for you. What do you think is a front runner for fight of the year so far?
Well, I'm gonna have to be a little biased. For the request of WBC to order Azat Hovhannisyan against Luis Neri, and I think that one is definitely a candidate right now. It was a great fight. I was no longer a Golden Boy, but I'd like to say that I put that fight together when I requested it, and that's a fight that I wanted to see for a long time.
There we go. That was a really good fight too. All right, Mario Munguia, fight of the year so far.
Oh man, I got to be biased. Jaime Mungia and Derevchenko was one of the funnest nights that I had at my house with my family, barbecuing and watching boxing in a really long time. It brings me back, like that's.
We can hear you.
We got you.
Okay, I don't know if that came through. The Luis Neri against Azat Hovhannisyan.
Great.
Yeah, we got you.
Great fight pick. Love that fight. And, I'm going with Mungia for the same reason. I think that there was just something there that night that was really special. I think they put on a great show. Like, you could argue what was on the line and all that stuff, but we're all hardcores enough to know that the best fights are usually the ones that don't have the big commercial appeal. They're the matchups that we appreciate the most, and that one I do.
You must have been proud of your cousin Mario that night, huh?
I was proud. I was so proud. I was proud of Pablo just for having the name.
There you go. Hey, Lukey, fight of the year so far.
Gotta agree with Robert Diaz. Luis Neri, Azat, Crazy A, Hovhannisyan, barn burner, opened up some building, Pomona, I believe, and best fight. It's the best one I've seen so far this year.
Okay.
Kenny Sims, Akhmedov, close, but that's the best one.
All right. Major Key, fight of the year so far for you.
Mine, man, despite the controversy, man, it was such a high-level chess match, bro, was Loma versus Haney, man. You know what? I really love that fight. And I know people like, what? Because some people seen, there was so much controversy around it. But it was such a technically difficult fight to score. Just, you know what I mean? For me, I enjoyed the hell out of it. So that's my pick.
That's a great pick, Major Key. I had fun that night.
Okay.
That was my number 2.
There you go. Shoeshine, fight of the year for you.
Fight of the year for me, 100% Jaime Munguia versus Sergey Derevchenko, because the narrative continues for Jaime Munguia, edging out that win in the 12th round, that knockdown. Edged it for him 114, 113 on 2 scorecards. I personally don't think he won that fight, but this is the kind of fight that if I have a casual boxing friend or just anyone who's curious, and they asked me what was the best fight of the year, I say, go and watch that. I had a caller on Monday who went to that fight, described his wife as having a boxing orgasm.
Whoa!
If that's even a thing. That's how he described it, a boxing orgasm. And listen, we're currently all talking about Jaime Munguia potentially fighting Edgar Berlanga, also still undefeated, potentially David Benavidez, potentially maybe someday still getting a crack at Canelo Alvarez. All of that is possible because his record is unblemished at the moment.
Okay. All right. Back to you, Shoeshine. We're going to bounce it the other way. What is the knockout of the year for you?
Oh man, there's been some beautiful ones, including Nakatani's going to be my runner-up, but this one goes to Las Vegas's very own Brian Mendoza, who did the unthinkable in chopping down the towering Inferno. Guys, he was an underdog, and he did something spectacular, which was capitalize immediately in a split second, fraction of a second, on a very hurt 6 foot whatever towering Inferno. And right now, that just goes to point how much the fight he had with Jesus Ramos Jr., who he came up as the loser in that fight, how that's going to age well at the 154-pound division. There are some great knockouts, but that one is my favorite of the year.
All right. Major Key, knockout of the year for you.
I have to go with that Junto Nakatani versus Maloney. And the reason why is because it was so Maloney was showing so much heart, trying his best, man, trying so hard. And with 20 seconds left in the 12th round, man, boom. I haven't seen a knockout that hard since Sergio Martinez and Paul Williams too, bro. He just stopped him in his tracks and just do. He just collapsed, man. That was beautiful.
Maloney's such a nice guy too. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. Hey, Lukey, knockout of the year for you.
It's real boring. Nakatani over Maloney, but to make it interesting, I'll throw in Guzman stops Ramla Ali. No one saw it coming. Upset, women's boxing, dramatic knockout. We'll just throw that one in there just to make it spicy for people.
That was a good one.
Mario Munguia, knockout of the year for you, brother.
I love that we can always count on Lukey to give us some, gem that we didn't think about. I'm going to go with Nakatani. When I was a kid and I would watch the home run derby, I would record my favorite hitters and I would watch their swings in slow motion. And I haven't done that since I was probably in high school or college. And I did that with that knockout because it was so beautiful. Every single movement in that punch was it's exactly what you want to show a kid when you say, this is how you punch.
All right. Okay. Roberto Diaz, what is a knockout front runner for knockout of the year for you?
I think that Nakatani to me would be the front runner because obviously it was little by little he broke him down. But the Brian Mendoza, which was the opposite, he was getting beat, he was losing, and he came out of nowhere and knocked out the Towering Inferno. So to me, that one would be the knockout of the year. He came from behind and did what not many thought he could do.
Okay. Joe Habib, what is your knockout of the year, brother?
Has to be Nakatani over Maloney. That was one of the most beautifully thrown, perfectly landed. It was like lightning in a bottle type punch. It came right out of a movie. And I thought Maloney was going to make it. I really did. Thought he was going to make it. But hey, Nakatani said, no, I'm not letting you go the distance. Got to get you out of there.
Absolutely, 100%. Look, there's fights, there's knockouts, and then there's performances. Joe Beeb, the performance of the year, what's the front runner right now? What's the one to beat?
The performance of the year? Got to be Teofimo Lopez over Josh Taylor.
Okay.
That's not even close.
All right. Roberto Diaz, do you agree? Or do you have another performance of the year? Roberto Diaz fell off. Major Key, let's go with you, brother.
I hate to be boring too, man, but I have to agree with that, like wholeheartedly. I did not expect Tszyu to pull it off, and if he did, not that convincingly, right? So I have to go with that as well.
Okay, all right. Roberto Diaz, what do you think is the performance of the year so far in boxing?
It's going to be funny, my answer, because it's both of them. I think Haney, who did an amazing job. I thought Lomachenko was going to win. I thought too much experience, but Haney proved me wrong. At such a young age, he was able to perform and play that chess game. And at the same time, Lomachenko, who I thought for a moment, maybe he's too old and too small. So in the same fight, I'll go with both.
Okay. Yeah, I actually agree. I think I'm going to say Lomachenko. I think what Lomachenko did when I was hearing people say he was going to get routed, he's going to get beat, he was going to get this and that. He fought an undisputed champion. And no disrespect to Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor was off for a while. And we're going to say Jamel was off for a long time. And why is Canelo fighting him? But then Teofimo fought a guy that was off for a long time. I don't think it's a clear run. I'm going to give it to Lomachenko, actually. I mean, personally, that performance, nobody saw that coming. And given his age, people were counting him out. I'm going to go with that. Shoeshine, what you got?
Yeah, I was there at that Lomachenko fight. It was a brilliant performance on his half, and unfortunately, he didn't get the nod. For me, it's going to be Teofimo Lopez, man, because going up to that fight, most of the pundits and most of us here on YouTube thought that, here we go again. He's obviously not in the right mental state, and he's going to have one of these performances where after the show, he's going to ask himself, what happened? Why do I still have it? But no, it was the complete opposite. Not only did he find himself again and perform at his athletic best, but he had so much fun that he was throwing Superman shots, and taking away that title from the lineal champ. Not once, now doing it twice in the second division. That's performance of the year for me.
Okay, there we go. Lukey, what's your answer for them? What's
your
answer?
It would have been Teofimo, but that's boring. So let me give you two different ones.
It's not boring because Loma had a better performance, brother. How about that?
We'll go with Zili Zhang, Big Bang Zhang.
I'm telling you right now, Loma had a better performance. He fought the undisputed champion who was active. How about that? What do you say to that?
I don't know. But
Zili Zhang, there's not a challenge when I'm challenging you directly, right? But go ahead and give me your answer.
What is it about Loma fighting Haney or something, and they had like a real close fight that was something. But anyways, back to this Zili Zhang. He had a good fight, and Walter Santabias beat Gucci Manny Flores in the kid's hometown. Those are two good performances that I didn't expect to see. So that can
give me a yawn, and you'll impress me a little bit right there. Good energy, good energy there, brother.
It's just a boring one. Like, it's obviously Teofimo, so give credit to other.
I don't
people,
agree. You don't have to be here if it's boring, brother. Hey, Mungia, well, what do you got, brother?
I think that everybody stole my idea, but I just feel like I'm gonna just throw them out there. Haney and Lomachenko, what they were able to do despite what everybody feels, it was one of the best 12 rounds that you've ever seen in the last decade. And I just can't stop thinking about how high level that was. So to have a performance from both guys, I think that represents like the biggest thing. But obviously Teofimo, that's when you're going to break it down to a single guy, it's hard to beat.
Well said, Mario. Well said. There you go. With that said, guys, that is all the topics. Everything has been talked about here. I want to thank Roberto Diaz for coming on. Thank you for giving us your time. Joe Habib, Major Key, thanks for coming through, brother. Shoeshine, Lukey, and Mario Munguia. Shout out to everybody. Have a good one. We're out. Peace. Till the next one. Ringside Reporter next week.
Thank you, guys.